see if that's better. Okay, well, let's see. Okay,
There you go.
There we go. All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about unlocking the future in education, embracing AI as a vital skill. So the gist of this conversation is going to focus on what can we be doing in our classrooms to ensure that we are highlighting and implementing activities in our courses that are teaching skills that students will need to thrive in an AI world. So we're going to start the conversation today. I'm sure this will continue on in our future tech talks as we move forward, as this whole situation is very fluid and continues to change on a daily basis. So our guiding question for this presentation is, how can schools most effectively enable students to develop the necessary skills to use AI for their own meaningful purposes? So keep that question in mind as we move throughout this information. So does anyone have any ideas about how we can most effectively enable students to develop necessary skills? Anyone have a suggestion?
Teaching good prompts.
Teaching good prompting, that's an excellent suggestion. And that's something that we're going to absolutely focus on today. So yes, that is definitely one of them. There's a couple of really good surveys.
Jamie.
Yes.
I was just going to say, step one to me is just having guidelines so students know what is and is not appropriate to use of AI in their schoolwork.
Absolutely. So providing guardrails and setting standards in our classes for the appropriate and ethical use of AI moving forward, and to ensure that students aren't harming themselves, right, with the tools that are available. So all of that is very, very important. Thank you for that. There's some really good studies out there right now about AI skills. And one of the surveys that was done in one piece of research I was looking at, this is a survey that was put out by Amazon Web Services, and it was conducted in September of 2023. And in that survey, 93% of the employers that responded said they expected to use generative AI, which are the large language models, which are ChatGPT, Bard, Bing, those models in the workplace in 5 years or less, with 45% indicating they expect to be using it significantly across a wide variety of functions. And we're going to look in a moment at some of the functions that were identified in this survey where they are implementing it now. So 93% of employers that they're going to be using generative AI in the workplace in 5 years or less. So this is going to be affecting people in our classrooms now, people that will be enrolling with us in the fall from this point forward. 42% of employers surveyed said they're actively looking for people with AI development qualifications. That figure will rise to 51% in the next 5 years. Additionally, employers stated that if they can find an employee with AI skills now, then that employee can demand and receive a higher salary for a position. 75% of employers who want to hire employees with AI skills said they're having trouble finding qualified candidates. That's not shocking, right? AI come upon us very quickly, and so we are all adjusting and readjusting, it seems like on a daily basis, and dealing with the AI tools that are available to us now. So having a gap in the skills is not something that's difficult to understand, right? So as educational institutions need to be kind of thinking about that piece right there. And also looking at the next one, which was 90% of surveyed employers and employees reported facing at least one barrier to accessing adequate AI skills training for their organizations and themselves. So they felt like they did not know where to go to get training, and that there was not a lot of training available at the moment for themselves and their employees. And in the survey, the employers strongly suggested that higher ed step in and play a pivotal role in closing the AI skills gap. So those numbers were pretty high when you're looking at the businesses that they surveyed. Cengage, let me stop 1 second. A moment ago, we talked about areas or departments within companies that are mostly affected. So areas that are being impacted presently, and this is not all of them because this is looking at a particular slice of industry. IT, of course, we expect that. Business operations or day-to-day operations, sales and marketing, finance, legal, regulatory and compliance, and HR. And look at those numbers of respondents and how those departments are being affected or expect to be affected by AI in the near future. It's pretty staggering when you look at the statistics on that. Cengage also did a survey at the end of 2023 about recent graduates and how they're feeling about their ability to get a job and thrive in this new AI world. And 52% said that the new technology makes them question how prepared they are for the workforce. And I can also say I have a senior in high school who's enrolling in college in the fall. And so we're having conversations about what should that major be. And so with this fluid situation that we're in right now, it makes us all a little apprehensive and thinking about, you know, what are the jobs going to look like over the next few years? What jobs are going to change? How are they going to change? What jobs are going to go away? What new jobs are going to come along? So it's difficult to see when we're living through this exponential growth and revolution in real time. So 65% of the graduates say they're eager for training on and working alongside AI. So that's a pretty high number there. And so we need to also think about that as instructors in our college classrooms. How do we start to pull out the skills that that our graduates will need to have to thrive in this world, and how do we make sure that we're incorporating those in our classroom? Employers, 59% said that the growth of AI has prompted them to prioritize different skills when hiring. So it seems like, you know, things have changed immensely since November of 2021 when ChatGPT rolled out in front of all of us. And AI is coming along at such a pace now that it's not just ChatGPT, it's a lot of other tools that are out there. Microsoft has an AI tool called Copilot, and Copilot is an AI system that works with all of the different pieces of the Microsoft suite and on a Windows machine, and they are currently embedding that system in the operating system of Windows. So it's not so much that, you know, we send students out to these external tools that are out there, these generative AI tools, to use them. The AI is coming to us. So if students are working in Excel, for example, and it has Copilot running, and they are working through a scenario and they need to use a formula, they can just tap into Copilot and it will suggest a formula or a function for them to use in the scenario that they're working on. So these AI tools are becoming ubiquitous, so they are embedded everywhere in the technology that we're using. So those skills are changing, and employers are recognizing that. 68% say their employees will need to learn new skills in the next 3 to 5 years. So upskilling, reskilling, looking at our curriculum in our classroom now. How are we adjusting for that? Are we adjusting for it? Are we thinking about it? Are we discussing it with our colleagues so that we are preparing for it? And that requires us to keep an eye on the landscape in particular industries. So if I'm teaching courses in the area of business, I need to be looking at, okay, what are the AI tools that businesses are using, and it can be all over the place, right? There are so many out there. But we were having a conversation yesterday just about the number of AI tools that come online every day and how it's nearly impossible to keep up with all of it. So what we suggest is that you scan the landscape of the area that you're teaching in and pick out a couple tools that your students could really use and start to incorporate those and learn them well. And talk to your students about, you're a learner in this too. We all are. And so we're coming at this and we're all trying to get a grasp on what's happening in this world. So working together in a collaborative way could be very beneficial between us and our students. So 58% of graduates believe closer alignment between employers and learning institutions would help them develop important workplace skills. That's music to the ears of competency-based folks like Sarah and myself. And so one of the things that we hope to do on the CBE side, as well as the AI side moving forward, is to help our instructors, you guys, to bridge those relationships with our classrooms and with industry and with students and with industry, so that we can see what's coming down the pike as far as AI tools go and what's happening in their individual workplaces. So we're preparing those graduates to move right into those roles that the employers need them to move into. How do we close that gap? So one of the ways that we can do that is by ensuring that we are intentionally teaching, highlighting, and modeling the skills that students need to thrive in an AI-impacted world. What you're going to see on this next slide is these are skills that are not necessarily new to us, but we need to make sure that we are intentionally bringing them out so that we are showing students, okay, in this activity, you are working on critical thinking. And this is what that looks like, or you're working on digital literacy and tech proficiency. And this is why you're doing that, so that we're communicating clearly what we're doing in our content and why students should be involved, engaged at a high level, and what they should take away. This will also allow our graduates to be able to verbalize to employers the skill sets that they have, the skill set that they've learned in your courses, and to be able to communicate that to the employers. We see a move out on in the industry, in different industries, for skills-based hiring. And basically what that means is that lots of employers out there now are, instead of looking at a particular degree and saying, okay, I am assuming the skills that were taught in that particular degree, is they are taking it back down to the skill level. So they want to know what the actual skill sets are that graduates possess. This does a couple of things. We hear conversations about skills-based hiring, and companies like Apple or Amazon are saying, hey, we're not looking for degrees anymore, or Walmart. And that kind of a comment makes educators very nervous, right? We're thinking, okay, are they saying that we're not putting value in degrees anymore? That is not what they're saying. Their value in those college educations is still there. They're simply saying, for the people out there in the world who may have got some college, no degree, or they've done courses and they've not had the opportunity to earn that credential, they've got skill sets, right? Or if someone has been in the military, or someone has worked in particular industry, they've garnered skill sets. And so employers are saying, let's take a look at the skill sets versus just looking at a particular degree and assuming that we understand what's in there. So the conversation about making sure that we're developing AI skills fits right into that same conversation with skills-based hiring. And so graduates are able to then communicate clearly the skill sets that they have for potential employers. So what are they? So here are 5. If you go out and you do a Google search, or you interact with ChatGPT and you ask for a list of skill sets that are important for students to have in an AI society, these will be on a list and you will find more as well. So critical thinking is typically number one. Problem solving is right up there as well. So critical thinking and problem solving. So thinking in being intentional in our courses that we have those types of activities embedded where students are thinking critically or solving problems or being able to define a problem, even being able to verbalize a problem statement is really important. And in this time of using technology like generative AI, like ChatGPT, it is crucial for students to be able to look at the information that they're pulling out of that system and evaluate it, right? To make sure that it's not an hallucination where the information they have in front of them is incorrect. So problem solving, critical thinking, very important. Ethical
Hey, Jamie?
understand. Yes.
William has a question, or he
Yeah.
has his hand up.
I'm having difficulty hearing.
Oh, well, William, did you have a question?
I apologize. I forgot to turn my mute
Oh.
button off.
Oh.
So, two questions. One sort of going earlier, one to this one. One, with the surveys on employees, what they are looking with in AI. Are there any surveys of how many employers are looking at developing in-house AI for them to use? I recently
There
saw
is a link on the one with Amazon, the survey information that I embedded on that slide. There is a link that takes you directly to that survey.
Okay.
And there is some information in there about employers talking about being able to develop in-house training for folks. Yes, they do go into it there. So there's some interesting information there as well. And also going forward, I can pull some things together for you. I've got some things tucked away in a folder that I'll be glad to share with you.
And then on this one, earlier we mentioned, like, what was it, 75% of employers are having trouble finding people who have the skills necessary. What skills do they find are lacking? And is it like of these skills, like they're just finding people who don't have enough critical thinking and problem solving? What are they looking for that they aren't seeing?
So they're looking, absolutely. That's a big part of it. That is one of the ones that they punch out to the top. So it kind of is twofold. So they're looking for people who can simply understand have a basic understanding, a foundational understanding of what are artificial intelligence tools. So part of it's a technical understanding, and part of it is this side where we just have the ability to interact with the content that we're getting, and how do we then digest that content? How do we analyze that content? And how do we convey information that we're learning to others? So it's two-pronged, and there's also some really interesting information in that survey about that as well. So part of it is, William, that it's a technical lacking, and part of it is an overall general area that they see some deficiencies that their employees are coming in with. So it's not one or two particular things. It's just a kind of a basket of things, depending on what they need them to do and what tools they're using and what area of industry that they're in.
All right. Do we know how they're
sometimes they'll also say in there that they don't know what they don't know yet, because the situation is so fluid. They're very much like we are. They're trying to watch it and predict and adjust and do a lot of guessing, really, about what's going to come along next.
So what I'm hearing is one of the crucial skills for graduates is bluffing employers that they know more than they do.
That'll go. That might work for about 5 minutes, but it's going to be a problem afterward. But also, one thing that was reassuring in there is that employers are saying that they know they too themselves lack the skills. And so they are also looking for that training to help them along with understanding these different systems and how they apply in their particular industry. So there's a real opportunity for higher ed. right here to be able to develop some good training, good education, good learning modules for graduates and employers. And that's going to require us spending time with those employers to understand what is needed. And I think that, you know, where we're spread across the state of Tennessee and we vary from region to region, this is a real opportunity for each one of our colleges to be able to say, okay, let's get out and talk with our industry that's in our region and understand if they are using AI right now, when they plan to use it, if they're not using it right now, and how they see themselves using it going forward. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving down this list. So ethical understanding and responsible use of technology, just as William said earlier in our conversation. So it's teaching our students that these tools, these AI tools, we need to look at them in such a way that we use them collaboratively, that we are not handing over our agency to these tools. So we are not going to take our activity that we're doing in class and plug it into ChatGPT and get what it's coming back out, and we're going to turn that in and give up our agency. We need to teach them that this, when you're using ChatGPT, anything that you get out of that system would be a rough draft for you or an outline for you or a guide for you to get you going. But then you need to also do the part of that assignment or activity that you can't just rely on AI completely for it. So ethical understanding, responsible use. And we've talked about that forever, right? With technology, that's not something new. But now with these AI systems, it becomes even more stated and important. Digital literacy and technical proficiency. Again, this is one that's been around for a long time. And as long as we've been using computers and we've been teaching online, especially, we've talked about digital literacy and tech proficiency. But it's getting, you know, more so now with these new AI tools and understanding how to use a system. And Glenna mentioned students being able to prompt, understanding how to prompt, asking good questions. Because if you're not prompting with good questions, it's that garbage in, garbage out thing, right? So it's teaching our students how to be good at prompting. Emotional intelligence and empathy. You'll hear this talked about different ways in the workplace. An interesting way that the researchers talk about it in terms of AI is teaching students to be able to work with AI and handle it emotionally. And the example that they gave was if you have a student who feels like they are good at writing and they submit some writing into a large language model like ChatGPT and ask for feedback and it comes back and it is kind of tough with the feedback, can they emotionally handle that situation? So it's not only being able to, you know, work with my coworkers and be emotionally intelligent in business and have empathy, but it's also interacting with the AI systems. Adaptability and lifelong learning. I come from a background of technology, and when I started down that path, I knew that I was going to be a lifelong learner because technology changes constantly. We all know that, right? We are involved in education, so we are all lifelong learners and we understand the importance of it. But we need to make sure that our students understand that they need to keep learning, especially with the technology that's pervasive that we're using now, that's all around us. So keep up with your skills, keep a general eye on what's going on out there, keep learning. Okay, so I plugged into ChatGPT and I was having a conversation about what skills students need. And it came back and gave me these 5 questions. So it told me, here are some important questions to look at and think about as far as teaching students about AI, how to use AI, and thinking about those 5 skills we were just looking at. So it came up with, how can students develop each of these skills effectively? And I plugged that question back into ChatGPT, and I'll show you on the next slide what it gave me back. What are some resources that can help in learning about AI and related technology? What ways can emotional intelligence be nurtured in an educational setting? How can students be encouraged to adopt a mindset of lifelong learning? And what role do educators play in teaching the ethical use of AI and technology? And in plugging these questions back into ChatGPT, it gave me some really great points. And so one of the ways for that first question there, how can students develop each of these skills effectively? It gave me these particular examples for critical thinking and problem solving, engage in discussion and debate. Now, you can use ChatGPT to engage in discussion and debate. Students can debate directly with that system. You can debate directly with that system. You can have a discussion with the system, or you can have students have discussion and debate amongst themselves and then bring ChatGPT into it and then engage ChatGPT, compare those two discussions. That's really interesting. Or have ChatGPT develop scenarios or discussion topics for your course. It's really good at doing that. That's one of the strengths of that tool. Creating problem-solving activities like puzzles, strategy games, and case studies. Again, I'm going to sing the praises of ChatGPT right here because it will save you an immense amount of time. So if you're working in a particular content area on a particular topic, you can have ChatGPT generate a puzzle for you. It can do a crossword puzzle. It can do other types of puzzles. It can do scavenger hunts. All of those things very well. You can say, gamify this activity for me, and whatever you're doing in that activity, it will gamify it for you. It gives you rules of the game, tells you how to form your teams, tells you how to score the game, etc. So it's really strong in that area. Or it can produce case studies for you. It can also help you analyze case studies. That's a really good strength of it. Digital literacy and technology proficiency, hands-on projects that require critical analysis, data analysis, or working with AI tools to gain practical experience. Again, use these tools like ChatGPT to develop a hands-on project for you. So if you've got a project in your class and it feels a little transactional in that you are giving students direction and they're then simply just churning something out for you or writing something and giving it back, have the tool say, okay, this is the project I'm starting with. How do I make this more interactive or more engaging for my students? I want them to be able to analyze information at the end, or to look at data at the end and analyze data. So you can have it, by giving it context and constraints and criteria, have it develop these projects for you, which is a real time saver. Because if we think about in our classrooms trying to react to how quickly things are moving and changing in this world, it takes us a while to be able to come up with good solid activities, right? That's a huge time, a huge amount of effort, and takes a lot of time to develop those good scenarios. So let these tools help you with that. Create challenges to solve and real world challenges that help in honing technical skills. That's a really great way. A lot of the instructors I work with are worried that students are going to be over reliant on AI to provide answers. Pull in real world, and it's less likely that they can lean on or be over-reliant on AI. Emotional intelligence and empathy, social activities, team projects, mindfulness and emotional regulation. So I saw mindfulness and I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I plugged in, I need a mindfulness activity for my college history course. And it came up with a really good one. So it had students in the classroom, the instructor was leading them through a mindfulness activity, and it gave step-by-step on guiding them through quieting down, centering, then transporting themselves to a particular event in history, and then to then look around, understand the sights, the sounds, the smells. And then at the end of the activity, it brought the whole class back together, and then students were exchanging information about their particular mindfulness journey. I thought that was really interesting. Volunteering and community service, that's another way. we can involve our students for emotional intelligence and empathy. Adaptability and lifelong learning, explore diverse subjects and stay informed on new developments, seek feedback on performance, and continuously reflect on personal learning and growth. These large language models are really good at providing feedback. And there's a lot of research happening out there right now on providing feedback in an academic setting using ChatGPT to provide feedback. So in a meeting yesterday, I had mentioned to someone that one of the things I suggest you do to see how it can provide feedback is to take an activity you have in your course, an assignment, plug in the assignment directions, take the homework that a student has given you, remove any personal identifiable information from that. Plug that into ChatGPT below your instruction assignments and ask the large language model to give you feedback on how that student performed in that activity and see what that feedback is. Students can also use ChatGPT to give them direct feedback on an activity. So that's a really strong way to use AI for that. Ethical understanding and responsible use of technology. There's all kinds of great things out there that students can do as far as ethical discussion. It crosses disciplinary boundaries. So an interesting comment that I read was that we are all now teaching AI courses. That's kind of true, right? So we can embed this type of tool into our teaching, no matter what our discipline area. So being able to talk about the ethics and responsible use of technology goes across all discipline lines now. Have your students engage in ethical debates and discussions with one another and with the technology. Okay, so on that idea of ethics, so I said, okay, give me some ideas for teaching the ethical use of AI and technology. And this is what it threw back at me. And this was not the definitive list. There were more on there. So autonomous vehicles and decision making. So it gave me the dilemma. So there are my guiding questions. Are we prioritizing passengers or pedestrians? That's a good question that's gone around about autonomous vehicles. And so case study, review incidents involving autonomous vehicles like Uber, like the Uber self-driving car incident. And so what I could then do is say, okay, ChatGPT, produce this case study for me in a concise form that I can then give to my students. Let that tool do the work for you. So I'm not going to stop and go start digging on the web and trying to find where that case study lives. I'm simply going to have ChatGPT do that work for me. Facial recognition and privacy. We did this one a few years ago in a tech course that I was teaching, and we were looking at biometrics and all the devices that are out there, and what about the ethical implications of those tools? And this was in a high school technology course that had freshmen through seniors in it, and it was one of the most engaging activities that we did, because the students really were like, oh my goodness, I know this technology exists, and much of the technology they didn't know existed, but they really got into it, and we had a high engagement level on, is this ethical or not? Deep fakes and misinformation. So this is an area right here that is probably the hottest topic right now in technology with AI, deep faking. So that is, and I'm sure you know what that is the ability for someone to take a likeness and a voice of that person potentially and produce a piece of misinformation or disinformation, and it looks to be real. So for example, one of the folks I follow a lot in this area of AI in the classroom is Ethan Mollick, and he had an example the other day. So he grabbed a piece of software which allowed him to create an avatar. So to create the avatar, he took a picture of himself and he fed that into the software, and then he recorded a script of him teaching, and he put them together, and in 30 minutes he had a deep fake of himself. And the only way that you can tell it is not him is the way that it blinked its eyes two times in that like a minute long example that he provided. He was shocked. I was shocked looking at it. So this is an area, if you want to, get your students into something that's really super interesting and really valuable for them to learn about, is deep fakes and how that could be used in the future. AI and employment. So this is another big one that's important. So a lot of these, especially Fortune 500 companies, are using AI to do their job interviews for them. So what they'll do is you're on camera and the system is asking you questions, and then it's measuring your facial expression. And based on those facial expressions, then it will arrive at some deductions of, are you being truthful? Are you confused? Are you confident in what you're saying? And so that's part of what we're talking about as far as AI and employment goes. So that's really interesting. Another use is the applicant tracking systems, ATS, which is where you submit your resume to a job and AI scans it for particular words and phrases. And if they are not there, then it's going to kick it out. And then thirdly is AI replacing jobs. So that's always a hot debate. So these are some really good ways for looking at ethical uses of AI and technology that can be used in any discipline area in your classes. So AI across industry. So what I wanted to do in these,
Jamie?
Yes. Yeah.
So William put a note in chat.
Yeah.
One of the serious issues is people using deep fakes for other malicious purposes.
Yes.
And just be kind of an awareness of that. He says, for example, a middle school girl whose peers could take a picture of her.
Yes.
And turn it into something else entirely.
A bullying activity. Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's a great example of where the awareness and that ethical discussion has to be part of what we're having conversations with our learners and our students, because there are places where people, absolutely, that is a great example of where it can cause some real damage, and where we have a responsibility to help create some conversations about ethical use with our students as we're learning more about the technology as it continues to advance.
Absolutely. And a lot of these situations we don't have the answers to, right? But just raising the awareness with our students, making them aware of what's out there and what can happen and what can be put in front of them that may be leading them astray or affecting them. With your example of a middle school student, I mean, when they put something on the web, it lives there, right? It's going to be there. And so years from now, people can go back and find those kinds of things, and without context, they become very dangerous, right? And so having these conversations and being aware of what can happen, the more nefarious side of things, is always an important discussion to have, for sure. Okay, so I wanted to, on these next few slides, just show you some of the things that are happening in the jobs area with AI and some of the jobs that are being put out there today. And I found this exercise pretty valuable as well with that same tech class that I had at STEM Academy. And it was just getting students to look at different job postings and look at what the titles were, look at what they were asking for as far as skills in those particular jobs. And these are things as well we can do with our students regardless of discipline area that we're teaching in, is raising the awareness of what's out there now in the world and what's coming at us. So I've put up a few slides here of just some of the jobs that I pulled off of the web that have to do with AI. And so we're going to look at a few of these. So here's a list of 10. I don't have 10 slides. I just pulled some off, and we're going to look at mostly what salary they're garnering, and just in a brief phrase what they do. So prompt engineer is one of the ones that we hear a lot about because of the popularity of these large language models. So we've got AI artists, writer, content creators. We hear content creator, right, a lot. Research scientists, machine learning engineer, data scientist, chatbot developer, product manager, solutions architect, and chief AI officer. And there are many, many more out there. So for a prompt engineer, there's some debate going on about whether this career has longevity because of the fact that these large language models are getting smarter continuously with machine learning. And so as they become smarter, are the prompts we are feeding, do they need to be more clear, more concise, get to the point, those kinds of things? So there's some debate about, as machines learn and get smarter, do we need to learn and get smarter about prompting? Not sure. As of today, this is a job, and this is a real one. And so this is a prompt engineer posting that I pulled off, and notice that the salary on that one is 108 to 136. And so we talk about prompt engineering quite a lot in our conversations at TBR. And many times people will think, oh my goodness, so I sit down and ask a question of a large language model, and that's what they're going to pay me to do that. It's really more than that. So when you get into these prompt engineering jobs, and some of them, by the way, pay $300,000 a year. It's really incredible. But these people who are prompt engineering are training those systems. Yes, the systems are training on public data. So it's just cranking through and they're learning, but they're also these prompt engineers that interact with these models. So think about it this way. So if I sit down at ChatGPT and I want to know how to do something in programming or coding, and it's going to come back and tell me how to do that step. Well, someone is training that system and they're giving it the information on how to do that thing in programming or coding. So some of this prompt engineering gets very technical. In the engineering side of things, some of that information is really technical. So you've got prompt engineers that have that skill set and they're training these systems. So prompt engineer really kind of spans a whole gamut of some of the positions are not that technical. Some of them are very technical. But this is one that's really hot now. There's a lot of conversation out there going on about it. So it said they're responsible for designing, creating, and refining prompts used in machine learning models. So providing instructions. They also, prompt engineers, if a machine is hallucinating, then they go in and correct the algorithm so it's not hallucinating anymore. And when people talk about algorithms, just think about it this way. It's just a set of steps to get to an outcome. I used to teach students that I'd say, okay, do you get up in the morning and you brush your teeth? Do you follow kind of a set of steps to do that? That's an algorithm. So that's a way to think about it. So they're just working, they're tweaking those steps that these machines work through to get to that output. Okay, an AI data scientist, that's pretty much what you probably understand it to be. So they're going to extract data out of systems and make meaningful information out of it. We had a conversation with the University of Tennessee a couple of weeks ago, and they have a data scientist degree or major, down there, and it's one of the hottest ones that they have. And so that's only going to become more. Think about all the data that's collected in these computer systems. If you go look up the amount of data that Google collects in a day, it's mind-boggling. So they've got all these server farms everywhere with all this data in there, but if you can't take it out and do something with it, to where it's giving you information that can be acted on, then it's just stuff sitting in there, right? So we have these data scientists that can pull that out, use predictive models or build predictive models, develop algorithms, and help the machines make decisions or help the humans make decisions. So that one pays pretty well too. And these salaries are probably median to median low. You can find more. Depends on where you live and the cost of living and all those great things. So AI artist. So we hear a lot about from artists of concern about being replaced by artificial intelligence, and they have a legitimate concern. I share that concern. But there are different positions within the creative world where you are using AI to generate art. And so that's what an AI artist in this respect here for film and media is looking at. So notice on here it says proficiency with multiple AI platforms. Midjourney is one that I have tinkered with. So that is an image creating AI. But know that the image creating AI piece is like the weakest link right now in the chain. So if you go into ChatGPT and you have it and you're using ChatGPT 4, you can have it use DALL-E, which is their AI tool to produce images. And it's interesting, if you tell it to start putting words on images, you'll get some interesting spellings. So it's not quite there yet, but it's going to get there. So AI artist is another one. AI writer, content creator. So here we're looking at technical writing, content writing. This is STEM fields. And so $80 to $110 an hour. So that's on a contractual basis. So yeah, so that's great. So that could be part of prompt engineering right there, actually. Interesting. Depends on what industry you're looking at. AI health careers. Now, AI, the health arena is one area where AI is pretty pervasive. And so if you go in and you start looking up AI health careers, you're going to find a ton of different jobs in that world. And they really span as far as salaries go, responsibilities go, what people need to know. It's diverse, very diverse, and depending on what you want to do. But healthcare is one of the areas where we see a lot of AI being implemented, and that's only going to be more so. So this is just an example of some of the ones that are out there for that area. Again, high salaries attached to it. Machine learning engineers. So these are the people who are writing the algorithms that these machines are utilizing. And so you can see there some of the salaries that go along with that. There's no shortage of these careers out there, and they're only going to be more so. We hear a lot of conversation about concern about AI taking the place of programmers. That will happen on some levels. However, programmers will shift to other areas within technology, where if the AI is writing low-level code and the programmer, there's no need to do that anymore, then they'll be freed up to do something else. I shared with my team, with Sarah, my team, that I took a piece of paper and I drew out what I wanted a web page to look like. So at the top, I just drew a box and I put image on it. And I drew a long rectangle on the left-hand side and I put links on it. So that would be my navigation bar. And I drew some boxes in the middle of the page and I put image, text on the different boxes. I took a picture of it. I loaded it into ChatGPT and said, code me a web page with this layout, and it did it. 100% correct. So it cranked out the code for me. I took that, put it into an editor, and I had my web page, and I didn't do one piece of coding. So, you know, that's a little concerning when we think about teaching kids coding particularly. But when I was teaching coding, I would have kids go in and use these tools called validators to help them check their code to make sure it was correct. So we can use AI in that way to have it check code. So that's one of the big ways that software engineers are using it now to have them check their code. So again, machine learning engineers are writing the algorithms. There's also these positions called natural language processing engineers. And think about it this way. We used to use that a search engine called Ask Jeeves. And that was the first one that we could go into and just put in a question as you and I are talking and asking one another. That's natural language. And so there are engineers that write algorithms that feed to natural language. We have a conversation with ChatGPT, right? That's a natural language function. And so that's another type of engineer in this field that has a very bright future. An expert AI animator. So this is a person who's using AI in entertainment to produce animations. So could be for film or different projects out there. So again, high salary, expected to generate significant revenue by 2025. Okay, AI engineer. This is in construction, so totally different field. And so this in engineering, we know in construction technologies, there's lots of technical machines involved, lots of technical information involved. So it's just being able to use AI in those ways, in those fields, to be successful in these positions. Let's see, this is telecom. So in networking, in the telecom industry, so a field engineer, this is an example, significant investment in AI systems expected by 2025. So there again, 85,000 to 110. Many of these were starting salaries. They weren't senior salaries. So that was kind of interesting to see as well. So telecommunications, AI and finance. So lots of fraud going on. So this is what this particular job was aimed at. So using artificial intelligence to find fraud within systems. So it said lots of AI implementation by 2030 in this area in finance. So there's an example of a position that's there. So all of this to say that skills are important for our students to know, to be able to use, and regardless of the discipline that we teach, we can address those skill sets and make sure that students know how to highlight and speak to those skill sets when they're talking to employers that are out there, and to discuss the importance of these skill sets with students moving forward. So I'm going to bring this out now. That should be the end of that, and I'm going to stop sharing. And so that's just an idea of what's going on the landscape dealing with skill development and AI. And again, there's a whole conversation going out there about skills-based hiring. So you can plug that in with this conversation and kind of see what's happening out in industry regarding that. But we need to be formulating relationships really with the industries in our area and understanding how are they using AI. Have your students do a survey of industry to see if they're using AI. If they are, how are they using it? What are they using? Have students find out if they're not using it yet. Do they plan to use it? What AI systems are they looking at in industry? So all of those things are interesting activities that our students can be doing to start the conversation with them and get them thinking about this too, because right now it's a very precarious time that we're in. So just trying to assure that we are preparing students in a way where they can have a successful future. And we know that it's changing, and we know we don't have the answers, but we do have control over some things that we're doing now. And so how do we harness AI and use it in our classrooms where we're giving students a start on it? That's really where we need to be thinking right now. So that's all I have. I did take the full hour. I was hoping it would be shorter, but sorry about that. But anyway, I hope you find some things useful in there that you can share with your students. If you want to do some activities with them and you want some more, let ChatGPT suggest some for you. Likewise, Sarah and I are here to help you and assist you in any way that we can to further a conversation. Or, to give you some ideas on different things to do or how to contact industry. Well, that's part of what we do as well. So we're also happy to assist in that way. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, be sure to reach out to us. We're glad to share with you anything that we have or help you in any way that we can.